Hi, it's Chris Titley here, and as part of the Camrea Cricket Club podcast series that we're running here via Scoreboard Media, I'm joined by John Valiotis, Club Secretary at Camrea Cricket Club. John, good morning.
Good morning, Chris. How are you?
I am very well. We're sitting here on Monday, the 10th of August. It's a beautiful Brisbane day. I'm curious, what's the weather like in Melbourne?
It's about 10 degrees outside. It's raining cats and dogs, and it's just a classic Melbourne Monday morning. It is miserable.
All right. Well, let's rip straight into this the podcast series. I'm curious, John, your background. How did you end up at Camrea Cricket Club, and what's kept you there?
Well, I've been involved in the North Metro Cricket Association and its successor or its predecessor, JICA Cricket Association, for the better part of 40 years, having started as a 13-year-old. I joined Camrea in 2019 after having spent the previous 30-odd years at two other clubs. And it was more or less a homecoming for us because a group of us left one club and went to Camrea, where we already knew half a dozen players. And so it was a really, really great happenstance or occurrence that we managed to get together with people that we already knew. We were keen on playing cricket, and Camrea had come back into the fold, having been in the Diamond Valley for a few years earlier. And so it was a great occasion for us to join with good old friends that we'd known since we were in primary school.
That's fabulous. And I love how cricket and also sport is a connector of people, and the fact that you're part of a team, and team sometimes represents life. I'm curious about what the club means to you, and also what an outsider would look at Camrea and what that would mean to, maybe they don't understand the camaraderie that exists or the culture that exists within Camrea. I'm curious to know if you could explain that.
Sure. Look, local sporting clubs mean a lot to those, firstly, who've been there for quite some time and who established the club and who've been life members for decades. And obviously you get new players, new people coming into clubs who either want to play sport or want a social environment. And from my end, joining a group of people that I've known for, at that stage, the better part of 30, 35 years, meant everything. And 2019, when I joined in particular, it was a fresh beginning. It was a new start, having been at a previous club for the better part of, I think it was 28 years by that stage. It was still local to the competition, and it means a lot to those people who are members of those clubs, because you spend so much time in that environment where you're there potentially 2 times a week, even 3 times a week, for significant hours on end. And so having an environment that you feel comfortable in immediately is so important, especially football clubs, cricket clubs, netball clubs, all of those types of organisations. You want to feel welcomed. You want to feel part of that club, part of that environment as soon as possible. And I felt that immediately. It was like I was coming home. So, and it's been the better part of 7 years now, and it means a lot. It means a lot to me as a bloke who's in his 50s. And look, I'm certainly not in the peak of my social sporting career at the moment, but I've been involved in the committees, the running of the club, pretty much from the start, and I love it. I love being there. I love even the anticipation of going there, either on a Thursday night for the club dinners that we have, which are quite legendary, and the cricket on the Saturdays. It's something I look forward to now in my 50s, and I love being a part of it, and I think everyone at the club loves being a part of that too.
I think you and I both can say that we're probably not open for selection for the upcoming test in Darwin and Mackay for the Australian cricket team, but we both love cricket, which is the most important thing.
I keep my avenues open, Chris. If the selectors, if Andrew McDonald wants to come and knock on my door and say, "Hey, look, we're looking for a upper middle-aged opening batsman who can keep poorly but can certainly keep the chatter up on the field," my hand's up. I'd love to play on the MCG. I'd love to tour. To be fair, I mean, a 6 week to 8 week tour to England really appeals to me. Actually,
Yes, I think it appeals to a lot of middle-aged men that aspire to play for cricket for Australia. And so a poor keeper. I think you and I will have to go head to head because I'm a poor keeper too. So let's put our differences aside for Australian selection and talk for the time being. And you mentioned 2019 there, like seven years ago. The world was a very different place pre-COVID, and the world was a very different place 7 years ago. I'm curious, taking it back to that first impressions of Camrea Cricket Club at the time, describing what life was like back then.
Oh, you've really hit the nail on the head then. 2019, well, we were certainly a lot more carefree environment and not subject to the whims of politicians and medical officers telling us to stay home and walk laps of playgrounds. It certainly was a different time, and it's interesting that you say, because those next couple of years, and when I say joined 2019, joined just prior to the commencement of the 1920 season, and as we know, come March of 2020, we were subject to the coronavirus, and the world changed over the course of the next couple of years, which made it so much more important to belong to something, to belong to a club, to belong to somewhere where you could actually go and be social and be with people and be in a social environment. And having made that decision to go to Camrea, it was almost as though we got given, let's say, 4 or 5 months between September and March of 1920, and then all of a sudden the world changed. And so being part of something so much bigger than yourself became so much more important.
John, you mentioned also before that you said you become involved in the club as either committee members, now your club secretary, etc. What is it about being involved at a higher level of a cricket club that gets you interested?
You want to be there's a couple of things to that question. Firstly, becoming involved in the running of a club means that you get to have a say and point the club in the right direction. I'm a legal practitioner. I'm always keen on having good governance at associations. I've been part of various professional committees and organisations over many years, and so at a local club, you want to be in a position where you ensure not only the proper running of a club, but also the future of the club. And so if you've got good people in charge, good people overseeing that, then the rest of it generally follows. So that's the important thing. And for me, that's the important thing, that having joined the club in my 40s, I wanted to go to a place where over the course of the next 10, 20, 25 years, as long as I was capable of standing on my own 2 feet, having a couple of marbles running around in my head, that I could be part of an organisation that enjoyed having me there, but I also enjoyed being there, and I could enjoy progression, an increase, an uptake in membership, good cricket, good environment, and that's very important.
And John, when you talk about a good environment and good cricket, every now and then a curveball happens, and a curveball happened for Camrea Cricket Club on March the 18th, 2023. I'm curious to know, for the listeners out there, your take on that particular day, if you've got a recap of that.
Well, I've in the entire time that I've been at Camrea, I've been incredibly privileged that I've also been a captain of the club. I started off immediately as a captain of the third 11, and I've been a captain of various sides all the way through for the last 7 years. I've captained a couple of premierships. I've played in semi-finals and grand finals. March 18, 2023 was a happy occasion because our first 11 had made it to it's called the Jack Quick Grand Final, which is the B grade, as in the grade just prior to the Premier grade, the JICA Shield. So you win that grand final, you get into JICA Shield. Very important game. In fact, you'd find from a lot of the pundits or a lot of the competitors within the North Metro comp that the JICA Shield grand final is almost more important than the the Jack Shield Grand Final is more important than the Jika Shield Grand Final. But it was a happy occasion. We had a lot of people there. It was a great. We would have had more than 100 supporters cheering on our side. We've made the grand final. It was a terrific occasion, and it meant a lot that our club had rebuilt to the extent where we're on the cusp of being in the best grade in the competition. Should we win that grand final? So it was an awesome occasion. I was, as a spectator and as a captain of the club, I was absolutely rapt to be surrounded by happy supporters, happy spectators. Players were zoned in. It was great until what we're going to discuss occurred.
And John, would you like to discuss that now? Obviously, if people Google things, Camrea comes up in some instances. But this is a very open and frank conversation. I'm curious to know what you saw and how you described that afternoon.
Well, look, like all grand finals, it was pretty tense. The game was being played pretty hard and pretty fair. It was actually a really good game to watch. We were fortunate that we'd made some pretty good inroads into the opposition's batting. We'd dismissed them. I think off the top of my head, we'd dismissed them for 80, which is it's a pretty low score for a grand final. It's under one-day rules. I think it was 40 overs a side anyway. But a lot of positivity going into the batting. We had a minor collapse. We're probably, I think, 6 down, chasing 80, and our wonderful fast bowler Roshi had come into bat, and we needed probably another 7 or 8 runs to win. He's hit a boundary first up, so needing only 3-4 runs to win. He has smashed the 6 that has hit the wall of the side of Office Works, and to win a grand final hitting a 6, I mean, we're talking some serious excitement here. There was a roar, the crowd, and Roshi's put his hands up. Chatura, who's on the other end, he's put his hands up, acknowledged the crowd, and it was just a sensational feeling. And I watched it all, and then all of a sudden, chaos unfolded. There were skirmishes. There were spectators running onto the ground, and I don't want to take this particular podcast as an avenue for blame, because we went through what we went through. But for me, as an outsider watching, it was bedlam. It was chaos, and police were called. Some people got hurt, thankfully not seriously, and it absolutely cast a pall over what should have been an exuberant situation. I mean, we've just won a grand final, and it was done in. It was like the boys' own dream home. I mean, you're batting in a grand final of any cricket, be it Test one day or local cricket like we did. You win the grand final hitting a 6. That's massive. It's wonderful. It's exciting. It's happy. And unfortunately, it turned into a skirmish on field where there were spot fires. Look, the skirmish, the brawl, the Donnybrook, the brouhaha, could probably call it a million things. It lasted minutes. We're talking about minutes of a season, but it put the competition in a bad light. It put both clubs in a bad light. And that's not what this game is about, and that's definitely not what Camrea is about. And it was distressing enough for me, firstly as a club office holder, but secondly as a lover of the game. I've played cricket since I was a 10-year-old kid. Watching it unfold, I actually I couldn't celebrate. The guys went back to the club rooms. I didn't go back. I was pretty upset with things, and certainly I was incredibly distressed about because we had kids there too. We had kids, we had elderly, we had and as a reflection on local sport. That's not what it's about. It's about playing the game, play the game hard, play the game fair, and to the winner the spoils.
And John, the euphoric high to within seconds and within minutes of just what happens, as you mentioned, very distressing for you. The next day, thinking about that as the club captain, what was going through your brain the days after?
Oh, look, because of the extent of the skirmishes, the fact that the game was recorded live via Frogbox on YouTube, so it was accessible to those who are interested in local cricket. And then it made the news. It made Channel 7 News. I think it made Channel 9 News, made various news outlets. And receiving the feedback coming from various players, officials, our president, it was all quite distressing. It was we're not talking about happy times. We're talking about reporting of incidents that occurred at a local cricket grand final in Preston, and it was for me personally, all I could see was that there were going to be some ramifications that came from this, and those ramifications, rightly or wrongly, were going to affect not only the club but also the way the club's viewed. And perception is important, and unfortunately, sometimes perception becomes reality when it's not the accurate reflection of what transpired. So I was incredibly concerned for quite some time, especially not hearing from the association, where it was quite obvious that there was going to be an investigation, which was important, and it needed to be done properly. And obviously, whilst we had the premiership conferred upon us, any potential negative feedback, blowback administratively took its time to come. So it's almost like you had the sort of Damocles hanging over your head, wondering when it's going to drop and see what damage it's going to cause.
And then the process of the punishment and the ramifications of the investigation. What happened then?
I think it was a difficult time for the club because it's not as though we'd been subjected to something similar before. So we assumed a process would be followed, which is instructive within the competition's rules and regulations. I mean, there were 2 umpires present. There was a official present, in fact, a match referee. The game was recorded on video. And so what we were expecting was some type of process where we would be called in, have a hearing, give evidence. But what eventuated was that other than the batsman involved in the initial skirmish, not a single representative of the club, not the crowd, not anyone from the crowd, not anyone else from the team, not anyone else from the club, was accorded with some sort of a notice to show cause. Why were you involved in a fight? Nothing at all. Like I said, we've got umpires there where the opposition, there were probably half a dozen reports made. In fact, we received a commendation from the match referee of our crowd controlling behaviour. We had a bloke there that is involved in security, and so the process was just not followed. And we're sitting there waiting to see what the ramifications of the investigation were. Would we be called in to come and give evidence? To our observations, what we did. In fact, I think I procured about a dozen statements, signed statements from witnesses present at the club to show that no one from the crowd did anything wrong. And in fact, we were charged as a club, as in its entirety, as opposed to individuals being charged individually for whatever their contribution was, which was, it wasn't just unjust. It was not following a process. And as a club secretary, as a club captain, as a lawyer, that's not just unjust. That's it's improprietous. It's wrong. In fact, it's wholly wrong. And so that formed the crux of what then transpired with respect to trying to make contact with the association, with endeavouring to say, well, can you give us what we did wrong? Can you give us what are the charges against us? What are the allegations against us? Are we going to have a hearing? When's our hearing? It was completely circumvented, and what happened was no charges, just a finding, and the club was taken completely by surprise and completely gobsmacked. You've gone from winning a premiership, having that celebration effectively destroyed, and then waiting for the better part of a couple of months. And in the space of those 6 to 8 weeks, having zero contact with the association, despite by myself multiple attempts, correspondence and messages and phone calls to the president at the time, and no engagement. And that's just wrong. That's not how it works. And what eventually happened was that there was a notice to deregister the club, and that's without process. That's without any administrative process. It was against not only the competition's rules. It's actually against the rules of association, and that's where I changed my hat from being a club secretary to being a lawyer. In fact, to being a litigation lawyer, which it actually upset me, because the whole point behind us playing socially in an organised sport is you want to be there. You want to have fun. You want to see kids play. You want to see older members play, and it was quite devastating for that purpose. It effectively meant the potential destruction of the club, and so that investigation was quite awful. And probably the acknowledgement of that investigation as being awful was the retraction after the first court proceedings. So and then obviously we went through the remainder of the process, which I'm sure we're going to discuss.
And John, the decision to pursue that and the decision to take that on and to say this is unjust, I'm curious around A, getting everyone on board, and B, what it cost you personally, emotionally, etc., to fight what the decision was made.
Well, if I can consider it chronologically, the decision that was made to deregister us occurred sometime in May of 2023. So that's the better part of 7 weeks post grand final. Then obviously there's an internal process of dispute which was unsuccessful, kicking it upstairs to the cricket union, which was also unsuccessful. And so making the decision to take legal proceedings was an easy one for me, because I knew the ramifications of the decision. And so it was a situation of, well, we either fold the club or we fight this. And folding the club at that stage, which was, we're talking about a club that's 90 years old, and folding the club that's not an option. And so the decision to take legal action was on my advice, and the documents that were prepared. And the emotional toll to me, I can put to the side, because I became pretty clinical about it as a legal practitioner, and as someone who my practice is personal injuries, and I fight for injured workers and injured people. That's what I do, and I saw this as no different. David versus Goliath, if we want to get biblical about it. And I saw, and so that wasn't a problem. But the emotional toll of the club, the pressure that the board, that the committee faced at the time, the president and vice president at the time, because again I was the secretary there, are two of my closest friends as well. And so that was incredibly important for me to do so. And so it ended up being that for the first court case, it ended up going to Heidelberg Magistrates Court, where the opposition caved in before basically the door of the court. So we were vindicated, and I was correct in my assumptions. I was correct in my advice that they hadn't followed a process properly. So that was an initial victory. And then, to be fair, I don't even see it as a victory. I see it as a vindication. It's you got to do things right. You got to do things properly, and it just wasn't done. And so that was the initial court case. But then again, the association determined that they wanted to see the end of Camrea in another way, that Camrea had been subject to various infractions over the previous few years, which again was not the right way to go about it. In my own opinion, I don't question what associations do. They've got to run a competition. They're charged with the governance of that. And so they went through that again. And so we had to go through another court case in Melbourne at the Magistrates Court here, where the actual application was run. That application for an injunction, as in to allow us to continue playing whilst the primary case was considered, was then ultimately successful again. So we get another win, and from then on we go back to playing. And the amazing thing about that that following season 23-24 is that our now A grade side, our JICA Shield side, actually made the A grade grand final. So we're talking about a club that was steadfast in its belief that we're here to do the right thing, and we're talking about a club that galvanized its members, and we've got such a strong membership base, such a good group of people from the age of 10 to in their 80s. That's how broad we are as a club. And so we all pulled together effectively behind myself and Dean Charalambus of Bastion Legal. Give him a plug. And we were successful, and we are where we are here. So yeah, look, the toll was significant. It cost me between 60 and 100 hours of my professional time. So if I was to put that into perspective of my normal legal practice, someone would have to cop a pretty hefty bill somewhere along the way, and so I did it. I did it mates rates for the Camrea Cricket Club. Put it that way.
John, I've got two questions on the back of that. One is you being objective and by the law versus A, being involved with the club, and B, lots of emotions and lots of A, trust of you and your process, but also noise around saying, what about this? What about that? Oh, this is unfair, blah, 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 and keeping a level track. And then B, trusting your own process to know, no, actually there is an injustice here. We need to go down this process. And then maybe somewhere along the line you're going, potentially it's not going to work.
Look, feedback, they say feedback is a gift. It certainly was no gift to me. I was very, very clear, laser focused in my mind as to the direction we needed to go. And yeah, I had, there were interactions with the committee about the process, what was going on. But I said, I gave advice to the committee. Follow my way. Leave this with me. This is cricket club business at a different level to what is the usual course of events of running a club and stocking the fridges and making sure people have paid their subscriptions. This is the law. This is litigation, and litigation is all that I do. And so, whilst the collective brainstorming of those around me was of good support, it wasn't of great assistance. But that I didn't mind. But because I love the people that are there, they had access to me, obviously. And our president at the time, Danny, this is under his watch. So as the president of the club, he was pretty shaken up by the whole thing, because it was incredibly unfair. And he trusted in me, he trusted in the process, and we overcame.
Looking back now, John, I'm curious how you describe it in your head about the process, and maybe there was some paths you took, or if you were to describe it in a sentence about that particular unjust in the process and getting back in. What do you feel now?
I wouldn't change the process because we were always reactive to what had occurred to us. So we can't make decisions as to to continue to be members of an association that has effectively tried to um, rid us of its membership. So us being reactive, I wouldn't change anything about the process that we'd done. Now, I attempted to be collaborative with the association. There was always a way around it. There was always a process that we could have followed that we could have come to agreement on, but we couldn't. And so, unfortunately, it's effectively the pursuing litigation is the nuclear option. Unfortunately, and so when you're backed into a corner, there are a couple of things that I think back. We were put before a general meeting before all the clubs to effectively plead our case. I spoke at that committee meeting where all representatives, or most representatives of the better part of I think it was 40 clubs back then, came to sit down to effectively pass a resolution as to whether we should be scrapped from the association. And I spoke then, and I think back to that, and I spoke broadly to the clubs and said, "This is the wrong decision. Don't agree with the association on this." I mean, I'm an advocate, and maybe I didn't do my job well enough, but I didn't get the support that I thought I would get. I thought I'd be listening. I thought that there'd be people listening to me to hear what we had to say, and maybe that was an approach that I could have done differently in the way that I spoke. I'm not sure what I could have done differently, because when you think back, well, what could I have said and done? But again, the perception was that the association's done this correctly, so why are you fighting it? Whereas my position in defence was, no, they haven't. They haven't, because it could happen to you too. And you would want this. You would want what I'm doing. You would want to do the same thing in the event that it happened to you. And that's what I tried to put forward as well, saying, no, they haven't done it properly. They haven't done it correctly. They haven't been collaborative. They haven't been open, because the association had adopted a fixed position, and the fixed position was wrong. And I wanted to make sure that the rest of the clubs knew that, and that we weren't some rogue club that was engaged in violence, which I abhor, which the club abhors. We have a zero tolerance policy, and it fell on deaf ears, and unfortunately, the nuclear option was exercised by going to court.
What's done is done, and obviously history is captured by video and things like that now, and news articles and whatnot on the internet, and people might search your cricket club and come up with that. And when a new member or a junior player or a junior parent sort of goes, "Oh, what happened that day?" How do you describe that now to them?
Well, we approach this front and square. We don't hide away from the fact that we're involved in a violent act effectively 3.5 years ago now. But the way we deal with it is that we follow the rules, we follow the law, we follow a process, and our primary objective is safety and protection of our members, and that's kids, that's 53-year-old hack wicket keepers, that's 80-year-old members. That's our job as a sporting association, as a club, is the safety and enjoyment of the club for our members. And so over the course of the last 3 years, we're incredibly fortunate, but also have been well managed enough to have obtained multiple junior players. We've had a junior club. Our junior program is thriving. Parents that have come to our club over the course of the last couple of years love the environment. It's because it's an inclusive, happy, friendly environment where we don't take ourselves particularly seriously. socially in particular. Obviously, on the cricket field, it's a bit different. We do like to win, but at the end of the day, it's not a win at all cost situation. It's club cricket, and so we actually love having. We encourage parents to stick around. We love having the kids there, and in fact, the kids. Half a dozen of the kids are usually the last ones to leave at training on a Thursday night, which tells you a lot about our environment. It's so incredibly inclusive, but we make sure of that by having a zero tolerance environment for violence, for aggression. That's just not on, and we are in fact incredibly fortunate that we have a few committee members that work in education. Work with the underprivileged, work within diverse cultural backgrounds. In fact, our one of our women coordinators, she's in fact a counsellor at a special school, which gives a great insight into how to work with those who don't have all the privileges. I mean, we've fostered an environment now that is it's an exceptional environment for young people, in particular for young people, but even for potential other hacks who want to take over my wicket-keeping gig in the seconds and thirds.
Don't think Alex Carey would be too happy about us knocking on his door. However, John, you did touch on zero tolerance, and I'm curious.
Yeah.
I'm a parent, and I've got 3 kids playing sport. It's not just about the kids, and there's also parents, there's sponsors, there's committee holders, there's stakeholders within the club. I'm curious how you get that message across to everyone and to say, look, this is, and also reporting of that as well, in and around, like, it's dobbing or whatever you want to call it, of behaviour that should not be accepted at a cricket club.
Oh, look, we're human beings, and unfortunately, we can only really be reactive to certain situations as they manifest. Now, I would assume any club worth its salt has a zero tolerance policy for violence, aggression, for discrimination, for not meeting with club objectives. I would think, and we're one of those clubs. And to the extent that you've got it's almost as though trying to be proactive about having a situation not manifest, such as no excessive drinking, responsible service of alcohol, ensuring that the kids have their own place, have their own space, ensuring that women have their own place free of discrimination, free of harassment, and making sure that we have a process of complaint where even if it's a minor complaint, even if it's one of, look, I was walking through the toilets and I think Joe Bloggs is a little bit drunk, pushed past me. I just saw it now. I'm not sure. Well, dealing with that immediately and going to find Joe Bloggs and say, I think you've had enough, mate. We'll get you into an Uber, get you home. All of those things are proactive measures that clubs take, that we take, and we take seriously. I mean, we had a wake for one of our dear departed life members 7-8 months ago. This was at the club rooms. It was attended by, varying reports, 400 people. This is how popular this Tommy Trantino was. He passed away, and we're talking when you consider that you've got 300-400 people. By some reports, it might have been up to 500, but let's say 300 to 400 people together at a wake, celebrating the life of a now departed life member, having a few drinks, having something to eat, and at some stage there were some emotions that got the better of some. That was dealt with immediately. It was okay. Come over here. We're here with family. We're here with a wake. Let's get you home. It was immediate. It was like, right, this is not going to escalate. And that's how clubs work. I mean, in an environment where there's 40 or 50 people at a training night, that's easy. But you think 300 or 400 where there could be an escalation. And we dealt with that. We dealt with it superbly because we've got experienced people. We've got, one of our long-standing committee members and life members is a senior crowd security specialist. I mean, I'm not saying we've got a bouncer in our midst, but we're talking about a crowd controller who, and in fact, he was doing an amazing job during the scuffle 3 years ago to pull people apart. I mean, this is the environment that we've got. We've got people who are incredibly committed to ensuring the safety of our members, and that's what we're about. We're at the end of the day, we're a social club. You want to be there. You're not there under sufferance. You're there because you want to be there, and because you want to be there, you want the experience to be happy.
And connection is such an important part of being a social club that plays cricket or a cricket club that's social. Either way, it's a connection point.
Incredibly so.
And it's very strong for mental health purposes. I've got two more questions. One is, You've learned a lot through this as the secretary of the cricket club. Are there other members or boards of other cricket clubs and say, hey, John, how do you deal with all this? How do you go through all this? And can you share some insights? And particularly even now with the zero tolerance policy, and more probably focus a little bit more on past that particular.
Look, yeah, if we take into context that I've come to the club since 2019, we've been surrounded by nothing but chaos for the better part of the ensuing 5-6 years. We had 2 years of COVID and the disruptions there. We come out of COVID, we then get embroiled in this dispute, which effectively went for 6 months. So 6 months. And then we've succeeded. We've won a couple more premierships since that time. The advice that I give to those running clubs is if you can't eliminate the element that is problematic and which is obvious, if you can't, because you should be able to eliminate that if there are members of your club, and it doesn't matter that they're members of your club, if they are not following the guidelines, the provisions, the anything that's sensible to run the club, you have to expel them from the club. You have to say, right, you're no longer welcome as a member of this club because you've shown that you don't have the requisite well-being of the others in mind. With respect to governance, there's always a way forward, and I encourage a collaborative way forward with associations. You have to be, and we have a great relationship with our Cricket Victoria manager. So you go up through the levels. You go club, association, union, Cricket Victoria. You be collaborative with the powers that be. Be part of the solution. We're not silos here. We're part of something bigger. And I always encourage collaboration with the associations to work your way through processes, and that's what makes a good club. And you've got to have good people in your committee. You've got to have people who are not only focused on the progression of the club, but also the well-being of the club. You need and a good cross-section of people. You should have big committees. I'm not talking about 25 people on committee, but I'm talking about you should have 8 to 10 members of your committee, because you get a broad cross-section of ideas. You get people who've come from different environments who can contribute positively with their experiences. And so that's important.
John, you mentioned 2019 and it's the starting point for Camrea for you. We fast forward to 2029. It will be 10 years in your involvement. Where would you like to see the club? And secondly, how would you want to describe that decade?
From my end, in 2029, I'll be 57 years of age. I want to see 50 kids playing various levels of junior cricket at our club. That's my primary focus. But my secondary focus is also to be a well-run club, a financial club, a club that is interested in the well-being of the community, that is a positive addition to the community. Our club plays out of Dunn Street in Kingsbury, and so we're fortunate to have a cross-section of diverse nationalities, ages, cultures that come to our club, but we're also in a lower socioeconomic area. And so as a club, we want to support our people as well. And so where I want to see us in 3 years' time at the end of 2029, I want to see a thriving community club. And I'm sure the council, who, again, we've got a terrific relationship with the Darebin Council. They built us our amazing brand new club rooms, which are just, well, they're state-of-the-art club rooms. We've got a brand new pitch, which was laid 3 years ago. We've got everything. And so I want that to continue to progress. And I also want to be there, maybe not necessarily in a playing situation, but I'm more than happy to stay a secretary till that time, because I love being part of a committee, a successful committee. We've been very fortunate to have some pretty good presidents. It's more the matter of that we've had a brilliant committee that's had to deal with some of this chaos over the last 6 or 7 years, and we're thriving. And we encourage everyone to join our club, because we've got it all. Maybe we're fortunate, maybe it's good governance, maybe it's a tick from both columns, but we've got it all. So, and we want to share that with the community. We want to provide an environment, a social environment, a cricketing environment to the community, so they can be happy when they come to Dunn Street in Kingsbury.
John Valiotis, Club Secretary of Camrea Cricket Club, thank you so much for the chat today and everything that you've shared about the club since your involvement in 2019, and may it be a prosperous 3 more years to 10 years for the club. And I look forward to doing this podcast in 3 years' time to get those 50 kids and all the other goals and objectives that you have set. Thanks very much for the chat today, and looking forward to catching up.
Chris, it was a pleasure, and we look forward to celebrating the 100 years of Camrea, which is only coming up shortly. It's going to be terrific.